In this video, I will explain how to use some of the library's databases to locate articles in literary studies journals, as well as in other disciplines that are important to English majors. And I'm hoping that what I cover will be helpful to you for this course, but also for any of your other English classes that require research. So once again, we're going to start at the research guide for the English major. This time we're going to go to the tab titled Finding Articles. And here you'll see it is divided into three segments, one for each of three of the tracks of study for English majors: literary and cultural studies, language, writing and rhetoric, and media studies. And under each one will be a collection of different materials. Since I'm going to be working with Langston Hughes and Helen Chasen, both poets, as my examples, I'm going to go into the Literary and Cultural Studies tab. So here you see the MLA International Bibliography Database, which is the most important database for people doing literary studies. But while this database is important, there are others that could be very useful as well. For instance, the Academic Search Ultimate is a great multidisciplinary database and is especially good for authors that might not be quite as canonical as, let's say, Langston Hughes. And you'll see others as well. Also, if you're not finding a whole lot, I do recommend Google Scholar as a good all-purpose database because there's so much material in there. So that's always a good fallback uh, database. Over on the left-hand side, you'll see that I've included a number of our newspaper databases, such as the New York Times, the Washington Post, etc. And as well as that, we have further down the JSTOR and Project Muse. Let me just mention that historical and current newspapers are especially useful when you're looking for book reviews. The other thing I want to mention is that these databases are all subscription databases, and therefore they require authentication by your university ID and password in order to log in and use them. So we're going to start by logging into the MLA International Bibliography. And we're in there. I've already authenticated, but normally you would have to do that at this point. So the objective basically is to start by typing in important keywords related to your topic. So for instance, if I was interested in African American poets, I would simply start with that as my keywords, run my search, and you can see there's quite a lot of material. Then I might want to narrow it down a little bit by adding another kind of subtopic or concept to that. So maybe I'm interested specifically in African American poets of the 20th century. So I add that as a secondary concept, and it will extract my first result list and limit it to just things dealing with the 20th century. And you see very, very few results. This is not a good list. So what you can do is start to browse through the results. And as you can, start making a note of some of the subject terms that are being used. And you'll notice repeated over and over is this 1900-1999. And that is because in the MLA, they designate the 20th century with those numbers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make use of the OR operator because I want to tell the system that I'm not only just interested in anything that's tagged under 20th century, I'm also interested in anything that's tagged under 1900-1999. And that OR operator allows me to include one or the other. So you will see we started with 35. When I add the preferred terminology, we're up to 959, which is a much, much better list. The other thing you can do to increase your retrieval if you're not getting a lot is to make use of the asterisk as a truncation symbol. So by putting in the letters POE truncated, I'm going to retrieve words like poem, poet, poets, poetry. So it kind of brings all of those together, and you'll see there's going to be a big jump in the number of results. So we're up to over 2,500. The other thing you can do, and unfortunately my screen isn't displaying it very well, but you can limit by publication date. So let's say I wanted only things from 2015. I'm going to move the little bar over to get to that year. Actually, it was 2016. And that brings me to 338 references. So basically, I have the most current four-year articles dealing with African American poets of the 20th century. So this would be a good list to go through. So that's just one example of how to run a search. What we're interested, let me clear my screen. We're really interested very specifically in Langston Hughes. So if we put in simply his name, and the example I'm using with Langston Hughes, you can add any other name you want. This is just an example. So by putting in his name, see, he's a very important author. I have to actually clear my whole screen again because I have to get rid of my time publication date delimiter. Let me get rid of that over here. Okay, so let me put his name in again. Let me clear this. And you can see there's a huge amount of material about him in the database. One of the nice things about the MLA is you can add as a secondary concept the title of a work. And if it's a work that's been written about quite a bit, you will find some material. So let me add the term I too, which is the poem you all read. And we now have 5 items, which is not a whole lot, but there might be some things of interest to you. So we're going to look at a few of these records, okay? Let's start with number 2. I always encourage you to click on the title of the article or the reference so that you can get more information on what it's about. So it's basically treating that work, I Too Sing America, but it's focusing on the elements of jazz and blues in the poem. Okay, and this is coming from this journal. Okay, the full text is available. There's the PDF icon, and there you have access to the entire article. Okay. The other thing you can do if you want, let me show you another example. Or let me go back to this example. Let's say you are interested specifically in, since this poem makes use of a lot of elements having that are related to jazz and music, maybe you want to not just focus on that poem, but focus on the elements of jazz or the blues in any of Langston Hughes's work. So you can add jazz or blues as your secondary concept. And here you can see a large number of results, 162. So there's a lot on this topic to choose from. Again, as you're browsing through, let me give you a couple examples. Let's look at number 4. You have to sort of examine what this is. This is an academic journal article. It's an article coming from the West Georgia College Review. And again, it tells you a little bit about the article. On the left-hand side is a cite button, so you can click on the cite button and get the proper citation format. for the MLA. Again, you want to look over it and make sure it's done correctly, but it's at least a start. You can copy and paste that into your bibliography. You want to make sure all of the material, all of the information is accurate and in there. All right, so let's say you want this article. You need to work with the links on the left. This is the Find at UMD link. This is the link that will help you find the full text of the article. So it goes through the library's entire list of journals, trying to find a match to that article. If it doesn't find it, the other option it gives you is to request the item through interlibrary loan. So you just follow this link. It will take you to a form. The form will populate the information about the article in there, and then it's just a matter of sending the request, and our interlibrary loan department will try to fill it for you. All right, so that's one example of how to get an article on interlibrary loan. Let's take a look at record number 6. This is not a journal article. It tells you it's something about a book. So let's click on the title. You have to, again, examine what you're after. So this is actually a chapter that appears in the book called Black Music, Black Poetry, Blues and Jazz's Impact on African American Versification. Okay, so and it appears on these page numbers. So again, you can use that Find at UMD first to see if we own the book. We do not, at least not in a format that you can use. And then you can request it on interlibrary loan. What's important is that as you find, when you get to that form, that interlibrary loan form that's populated with the information, make sure all of the information is in there. And if it's not, you need to add it in the notes field. So you would definitely want to make a note that this is a chapter on these page numbers in this book, and that this is the title of the chapter. Okay? All right, so let's back up, and I want to show you one other example. We're going to look at record number 8. Again, this is a journal article that appears in Poetics Today. We're going to again use that Find at UMD. And in this case, our system has actually found a link to the full text of the article. So all you have to do is follow through on that link, and hopefully it will take you to the article. Here it is, and here is the PDF of the article. So we try, using that Find at UMD, we try to link you either to the full text of the article, or to, if it's a book, to the chapter in the book or the book in WorldCat, so that you can either get the full text online or request it on interlibrary loan. So this is an example of a scholarly journal article, and there are certain characteristics that you look for that will help you identify whether or not a journal article is a scholarly article or a peer-reviewed article. And one of the things you look at is the length of the article. So if we go back to the record, this is a very long article. Okay, it's close to 30, almost 40 pages. So this is a pretty important article. Also, looking at the record, you want to examine the author. So this is someone, probably a professor, a scholar from the University of Cambridge. That's another indication. A lot of times, not always, but a lot of time there will be an abstract that describes what the article is about. And then almost always at the end of the article is actually going to be sometimes a pretty exhaustive bibliography of other sources, which is often a good place to go to find other articles on this or a similar topic. Right? So that's an example of what to look for in a scholarly article. All right, so these are, you can see there are a lot of articles about Langston Hughes and jazz or the blues. Let's say your focus is more on the notion of Black identity in Langston Hughes's poetry. So you could add that as your secondary term. A very different number of hits. These are going to be very different. Some might be duplicates from the first search, but you're going to find a lot of new and different material in here that focuses specifically on Langston Hughes and his notion of Black identity. Okay? All right. Let's now turn to a more difficult topic, which is Helen Chasen. Helen Chasen is a much less studied author. So we're going to start in the MLA, but if we don't find enough there, we're going to expand by adding other databases. So let's just clear the screen or the search, and we're going to put in her name and see what we get. Okay, just as I thought, there are only a couple articles. So at this point, you definitely want to look at those, but you could ask to choose to include additional databases. There are a lot of EBSCO databases that might be of interest. Some of them are on the research guide that I mentioned, or you could just click on Choose Databases and choose the ones that look interesting by their title. I've already mentioned Academic Search Ultimate, which is a great database. It's a multidisciplinary database. So that one is always a good one to search. But there are others that might look interesting. So again, if you were interested in a female author, you might want to try that one as well. Okay, so you pick and choose the ones you want. When I'm desperate, I choose all of them and see what happens, but we're going to just choose those three for right now. So we're now searching not one, but 3 different EBSCO databases. You got that? Okay, we'll run the search. And instead of 2, we have 19. That's a little bit better. Again, you're going to go through these, and they're not that many. There are a couple. These first 2 look to be of interest. This is one that you would have to request on interlibrary loan, actually both of those. And you'll notice from some of the titles, a lot of what you're going to find in here on Helen Chasen are more magazines rather than scholarly journal articles. They tend to be articles from things like New Republic, which are magazines that offer contemporary commentaries on contemporary culture and the arts. Because there's so little on her, I'm going to go back to the guide. You might want to try some of these other databases. You definitely want to look at newspaper articles on her, because there might be some, I think there might be some obituaries on her. I think she died anyway, not too long ago. And there might be reviews of her books, okay? And we also have added here the 2 large full text databases of journal articles, JSTOR and Project Muse. And once again, if you don't find enough, you can always contact me, and I can work with you one-on-one through Zoom or by email. Okay? So best of luck with your research. I hope it goes well for you. Bye-bye.